Hello, Ayako. How are you?
Doing good, thank you.
Well, so hello, everybody, and welcome to this session of Talking Tech, Girls and Women in ICT, Geospatial Edition. My name is Camila Narbaitz Sarsur, and today I'm delighted to be promoting this session, and I'm excited to be having a discussion about geospatial careers with Ayako Kagawa, Chief GIS of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. So Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world between Girls in ICT Day 2020 to Girls in ICT Day 2022. It's an international day on the fourth Thursday of each April. So the objectives of these days are to help to create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in growing field of information and communications technologies.
So the goal of this series includes to bring before a broader audience some of the role model women in ICT and share information about their career journeys and work. Offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used to support and achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals and showcase initiatives that are working with girls to support them in ICT studies of future ICT careers.
So the Talking Tech series is brought to you by the International Telecommunications Union, United Nations International Computing Center, and the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and is in support of Equals, the global partnership of gender equality in the digital age. This interview is part of the Geospatial edition of the Talking Tech series, and this special edition aims to shed light on experiences of women and girls working or studying in the field of geospatial. The Master in Science in Cartography and the United Nations Geospatial Network is pleased to be a partner on Talking Tech Geospatial Edition and host this session today.
To provide you a brief background, the United Nations Geospatial Network is a network of geospatial experts of the United Nations system whose mission and vision is to strengthen the coordination and coherence of geospatial information management within the United Nations system to transform the lives of people, places, and planet for a better world with geospatial.
Yeah, and empirical observations support the statement that geospatial sector is male-dominated. There is underrepresentation of female CEOs, directors, and head of GIS operations in the private and in the public sectors, but also in the academia. This is also true in the field of peace and security, more explicitly in the world of peacekeeping. A world where there are equal representation and opportunity is a world where I think everybody wants to be in. So as you can see, a more gender balanced geospatial sector is something that I'm passionate about and working towards. So I'm delighted now to shift to a conversation with Ayako Kagawa, the Chief GIS of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. So to start with, could you please introduce yourself, basically what your current position is or job?
Thank you, Camila. So my name is Ayako Kagawa, Geographic Information Officer and Chief GIS of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, also known as UNIFIL in southern Lebanon. I lead the geospatial file for the UN peacekeeping mission by supporting its Security Council resolutions and mandates.
Okay, now that everybody knows more about you, I would like to start with a wide question. So what did you learn in so many years of working in geospatial?
As a geographer, I know that every day is actually a new day where I have something new to explore, something new to learn, something new to contribute and share with the community who believes in the United Nations Charter, We the People.
Okay, that's super, an everyday challenge. And I'd like to know about your beginning. So when and how did you got involved in geospatial?
So I had the opportunity to grow and live in many countries and amongst different cultures and people, different to my own as a child, which allowed me to be curious and observant on how every place and people are so different. I also had the fortune to be brought up by parents who loved to travel and art in general. So that allows me to be exposed to art and science of cartography early on. So I grew up actually believing that everybody's holidays involved painting, drawing, and yeah, I also daydreaming. So I ended up loving to draw treasure island maps of fantasy places to explore for an adventure. So initially, I was much more interested in history as I loved also reading books. But somewhere along the way at secondary school, my strength was switched between history and geography.
I can see that you have always been interested in the topic in one way or the other. And what brought you to work for the UN?
So, as a child, I also had the pleasure to be taken to Geneva, Switzerland, where we visited the United Nations office in Geneva, UNOG. So, we went on a tour where I was mesmerized with the conference rooms and also the interpretation booths. As a young child who had to learn new languages, to make place in a place, to survive in a place, it had not occurred to me that you could use one language as a base to understand another. So I was actually shell-shocked to find out that my own mother tongue was not part of the UN official language list, and not being a native speaker of these languages, I realized that I would not be able to become a professional UN interpreter. However, again, as any child experiences along the way, my passion and interest and favorite subjects changed, and I became much more enamored in learning more about the history, the geography, and also cultures than the actual languages itself. So I had the most wonderful geography and history teachers, both in primary and secondary schools, but also at university as a geography student. I also feared of being stereotyped. And I really wanted to defy the myth that with a geography degree, you only become a geography teacher. So with geography, you really actually have the world at your disposal. And in serving the United Nations, I have expanded my opportunities to meet and work with amazing people and also visit and live in real mind-blowing places.
Wow, super interesting. I love the fact that you were interested in topics since you were a child. And also that you were already thinking about working about the UN. That's impressive. So can you tell us any obstacles that you had to work to get over?
I do think that we all humans have prejudices or preconceived notions of people and places. And whilst the United Nations Charter lays the principal foundations of we the people, and as we as citizens of the world strive to achieve these proclamations, we work with the reality of an imperfect world. And these prejudices and imperfections should not be seen as an obstacle, but a challenge to overcome individually and also collectively as a community.
Yeah, true. I have to highlight that part about the concept of working in an imperfect world. That's totally true. And also that I really like that you see obstacles as challenges. And what about an obstacle, the barrier from your gender? Have you encountered it in your own experience? How did you get over it?
So I come from a culture where tradition is steeped very strong and deep in our everyday behavior and identity. In this regard, I'm very grateful for my parents who brought me up to think critically and also creatively. So on my first day of my first job, it was naturally expected for me to prepare and serve tea as a female staff. And I decided that I was going to adjust my perspectives of the world to see this task as an opportunity to really get value out of the circumstances. So I was able to make use of this situation of serving tea and interact with my colleagues to use it as an opportunity to interact, communicate, and message out what I really wanted in the end, in the long run. I also do believe that in my first gig in the United Nations peacekeeping with the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force, UNDOF, in the Golan, in the Syrian Arab Republic, I encountered many amusing situations when a UN blue helmet military personnel would come to our office. He would completely ignore me and speak with my military officer for geospatial products and service requests. My military officers would always comment towards the end of these conversations that he would have to get an approval from his boss. And at that point, this client would ask, so where is your boss? And my military colleague, he actually would coolly comment that she's been actually listening to all of your conversation all this time whilst you actually had your back to her. And I really appreciated the fact that my military colleagues had for me, because I think they really respected my technical knowledge and expertise, and was really not clouded by the gender perspectives. So I do try and take this approach in my everyday work, where I do believe that respect and professionalism is the paramount before any other aspects in working in our mission and any geospatial assignment.
Yeah, totally. Everything goes beyond the gender. And it's actually, I mean, we need men to be involved in this also.
Definitely.
To get through it. And we shift a bit the topic. And what was the most exciting work that you had to do in your career?
Oh, that is a very hard question, because it's really hard to say for me, because every assignment has been a real excitement and honor in doing them. However, if I had to highlight one of the many from my professional experiences, the opportunity to serve as the first chief GIS in UNDOF in the Golan was a real privilege. I was responsible to prepare the topographic maps of the area for our UN peacekeepers. And this area was actually not mapped since the 1960s. And therefore, it was for the first time in close to 50 years that the area was to be mapped. With this came a great sense of responsibility. It was also one of the first topographic mapping projects that the United Nations was going to do, using its own internal capabilities to demonstrate to the international community that it was possible. So the methodology of the combinations of remote sensing and GIS technology and verification on the ground by our UN peacekeepers was novel. And I think it was really owing to the leadership and the vision by our chief in New York and the force commander of the mission at the time that this project really took place. It's these moments that you really realize how critical it is to have the right people at the right moment. So I was very appreciative of the mission leadership who supported this initiative, because I know that initially he was not convinced, but once having me on the ground, he was committed supporter and championed the cause. So this also shows that prejudice can also be overcome by anybody.
Wow, must be like, I mean, it's not that easy nowadays to map an area that it's not mapped. And I mean, it sounds super exciting, like to have all this interdisciplinary work and field work also in mapping. Super, super exciting. And what about the most challenging work you had to do?
I do feel that every day is a challenge from a professional context, but I do say often that crisis is a combination of risks and opportunities for everybody. And in this regard, I experienced a real sense of euphoria when in my former office, the United Nations Geospatial Information Section, UNGIS, I was able to carry out and complete the Iraq-Kuwait Boundary Maintenance Project, also known as IKBMP. The reporting of its project completion to the Security Council members in the Security Council chamber allowed one of the member states to exit one of the chapters of the UN Charter and enter into a better chapter. I really felt privileged to be part of this important moment in supporting and facilitating a state from a technical context that allowed them to be acknowledged with dignity and respect from a global political and international legal perspective. And again, this happened because of the vision and the leadership by the member states. Another example and a similar example was when I again contributed by supporting in the background the adoption of the General Assembly resolution on global geodetic reference frame for sustainable development, GGRF, where again, the political willingness of member states brought about technical resolution to be adopted by the diplomats. It was the first Geospatial General Assembly resolution, and I'm truly proud to have been part of that adventure. In my current role, I'm also trying to find opportunities on how to materialize this resolution in order to contribute further to the blue line, the withdrawal line of the force from the southern Lebanon, as its delineation demarcation uses geospatial technology of surveying, which has the potential of bringing much more value to the land and people in southern Lebanon. So in both examples, we had to bring about highly technical issues, which normally is not of much an interest or difficult to be understood by the diplomatic community to a level that it's comprehensive and allow them to interpret and forecast the value it brings to the global community if we cooperate. So in this regard, every solution by the geospatial community has its potential to bring about more common operational picture, more understanding, and more sharing.
Yeah, totally true. Super important. And we're gonna change a bit. So I'm gonna ask like more personal question. So what quality of your character do you think is your greatest strength that has helped you to succeed in your career? And how have you overcome your own weaknesses?
So I believe that everything has its advantages and disadvantages, and you have to have a balance. So my strengths and weaknesses are a double-edged sword. By nature, I'm actually very shy, and I'm not very good at actually talking to people, and therefore I actually prefer to listen to people. This preference for listening has given me unexpected advantages without realizing to build up confidence and trust in me by my clients, to work with me openly with honesty and respect. In my previous role in the United Nations Geospatial Information Section, UNGIS, where I served as the principal geospatial coordinator for the Security Council's closed consultation meetings and the United Nations Operations Crisis Center, UNOCC, being a listener, interpreter, and a translator to our counterparts' geospatial whims and wishes, served all of us well when times were tough, when the situation was critical. My role was to be the backstage manager, where I would be supporting and facilitating our clients to be in the spotlight. And with these roles and responsibility clear in place, I do believe that we could work collaboratively to achieve our goals of serving the Security Council members or our Secretary General and his leadership team. In this regard, over the years, I actually have started feeling that being a quiet and quirky and brutally honest geospatial expert has allowed me to stand out in a crowd without pretensions in some ways, as one who is committed to be a team player, to shed a spotlight on the star players.
Okay, yeah, so what it seemed to be a weakness, actually, it wasn't one. And yeah, and nowadays, like in a world full of wars and fights, what do you think are the main contributions that cartography can make into this crisis?
So, as a geographer, cartographer, and a geospatial expert, I continuously try to advocate that geospatial locational data and information is a fundamental asset for the United Nations, as everything happens somewhere in this world. And if we're able to strategize, organize, and plan in advance, we can actually collect geospatial data and information once, use it for multiple purposes for the benefit for everybody, and especially we, the people. Cartography can visually influence and impact subtly the message by the narrator. In this regard, geospatial experts have the opportunity to listen, understand, and communicate with the narrators to fortify their story, really bringing value to this story making and storytelling process. In UNIFIL, my team tries to bring situational awareness for the force's command and control environment through geo-enabled common operational picture. So the provision of visual clarity and comprehensiveness should allow the leadership to provide better evidence-based decision-making and use it for its operations. The line of thought of providing a common operational picture through evidence and data is in line with the Secretary General's data strategy, where it tries to unlock the full potential of data and information. And this also coincides with the UN Geospatial Community's Geospatial Strategy for the United Nations, which its mission is to really mainstream the use of geospatial information across the UN family for unified, integrated, and accessible information analysis and visualization for evidence-based decision-making and data action in support of peace and security. So not only in the area of international peace and security, but also human rights, international law, development, and humanitarian aid. So in a broad context.
There's a lot to do. And if I go a little bit deeper in this sense, so we know that borders are a difficult topic and are something that every person involved in geospatial has to deal with. So as you have been working with them for a long time, what is your opinion about borders in general and borders disputes?
So as the United Nations, we must honor the UN Charter, its principles and practices, and respect its values. I have to say that I've been truly privileged and honored to serve the organization on cartography and geography, including boundary-related matters. In my previous role in the United Nations Geospatial Information Section, I was responsible to review and authorize the official maps of the United Nations, which reflected its policies and practices. At the same time, I was part of the team to draft the guidelines and guidance for our Secretariat colleagues, and to guide them to ensure that their products and services were following these policies and practices. So I also had the pleasure to oversee the developments of the UN map, or today it's known as UN Geodata, and its derivatives, such as the UN Clear Map, a global web service that is used across the Secretariat colleagues that reflects the policies and practices of the organization through a web map service. I also oversaw the team responsible for the second administrative level boundaries, South, where we worked with member states to collect, harmonize, and disseminate authoritative global small-scale administrative boundary data sets and their respective national geospatial authorities' contact information. So as a geospatial expert, I note that boundaries are a construct of people. Some of them reflect the natural phenomena, whilst others reflect the human phenomena. Therefore, in a changing world where it is not only man-made conflicts, but natural environmental changes such as climate change or natural disasters, we need to find a balance and solutions on how to resolve disputes or challenges, as we, the people, all have sovereign equality, but also the right to live in this world. I really think that we need to have this sense of community and a willingness to contribute for a better world.
Wow, super interesting, like the way you were doing, and actually know that how the borders are done in the UN. And this last reflection, I take it with me. It's super nice. Yeah.
Well, Camila, thank you very much for all these interesting and challenging questions. And I hope that my answers provided you some food for thought. So may I now ask you some questions?
Yeah, now it's my turn.
Yes. So how did you get into geospatial? What is it that you like most about it?
Well, so my way, it's a little bit different than George also. So I studied architecture, and when I was doing it, I got involved more into urban studies. And there is when I discovered that how important is to work with geospatial data in order to make decisions in urban politics and also design. So at that point is where I started learning some GIS softwares and other tools. And what I like it the most, and what I still like about geospatial, is the fact of how it translates information into maps. And I love their capacity to represent a wide variety of topics in a super simple way that actually can be read by everybody.
Wow, I think we share the same value and passion in that context. I have another question. What are your plans after your studies? What are the things that have changed your views in this field? And now that you have immersed in this field?
Well, it's not that I have fixed plans, but I like to work in something I enjoy, no matter in which part of the world it is. And there are some things that changed my view in this field, but the most important is that it keeps surprising me every now and on is the fact that the huge variety of things that can be done with geospatial that actually I didn't know, and in a wide range of fields. I think that's why I cannot be fixed with one. And yeah, like fields that I didn't even know that they existed. So that's what I like about it. Like each day I'm learning new things and that we can do actually with geospatial.
And I think that's something that I think I also share with you, that I'm also learning every single day. There's something new to learn, and I think that's a great privilege as a geographer. I do have a last question. So, do you have any messages for other young women who may be considering to join the geospatial community, or who are already part of the geospatial community? What will be your advice?
Well, as I have a different background, which perhaps gives me other tools to what, I don't know, a background in geography or geodesy can give, I can say that it is still possible to immerse yourself in geospatial. And something positive is that it gives you another perspective on the topic. So an advice in this direction is to try to connect to other people in the field and to work interdisciplinary, which in my opinion is the best way to learn from your peers and also to be prepared for what comes next. I mean, after studying, but you can never know. Yeah.
That is very true. And I think the United Nations in some ways embodies that, because I think the respect for diversity is our core principles in our UN Charter. We respect who we all are for what we are. So
yeah.
It's lovely to hear that you feel that geospatial field has also allowed you to be part of the community, and also you want to expand that community by working with other colleagues in the other fields as well.
Yeah, I think that it's super interesting, like the things that can come up after these like exchanges.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think that wraps up our session today for Talking Tech, Girls and Women in ICT, Geospatial Edition. Thank you so much, Ayako. I really enjoy our conversation today. Thanks so much to our viewers for watching it.
Thank you very much to Camila, and thank you very much for all our colleagues, viewers watching this session. Thank you.